Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Anthony Olascuaga versus Juan Carlos Camacho Jr. fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content and I will try my best to get it out. There has been a video that's going to be coming out this week as well, which is the Callum Walsh versus Fernando Vargas fight prediction. That was a request from the Patreon, and really do appreciate all the members in which and all the support in which I've had so far with it already. The link will be in the description, and yeah, let's get straight into this one. So this is a new kind of, I don't even know if you can call it like a series, or I don't know what to brand it as, but it's a new feature in which Ring Magazine are doing with their events at the moment, and it's called the Underdog. And I mean, it's a feature event for the Canelo-Crawford card. There was continuous talks about there being a lot of fighters on the Canelo-Crawford undercard, and there is quite a few. Maybe not kind of the level of expectation in which fans were expecting, but like I say, this is a new thing in which they're doing, and it's a whole card in fight week, which is nice to see, and it is topped by this fight, which is a good matchup in my opinion. But yeah, like I say, this new underdog kind of event in which they're doing, it does seem like they're going to try and do these quite often, giving the recognition to fighters who maybe haven't been put on the biggest of platforms. I mean, I know that Olascuaga is a world champion, but he's been having to fight continuously in Japan against, other top names, and often hasn't been the kind of main focus, whereas now he has the opportunity to be the main focus. And when you look down the card as well, there's all kind of guys who are up and coming and things like that, and they get that opportunity to fight on a big stage. And it is a big stage because yes, it's not on the actual Canelo Crawford undercard, but to be fair, there's still, I'd imagine, going to be a good selection of viewers that will be there to watch it, and even live as well, because of all the hype that will be around, just boxing as a sport, due to its being, the fight week for such a big fight. So again, I'd imagine this is still a big occasion for everybody involved, and this might be, the route in which that seller is kind of trying to go down. It does seem like they're trying to get fighters who aren't really being promoted tremendously well, or aren't really being pushed that much, and trying to give them a platform. So maybe, the likes of an Olascuaga, when you look at the actual main Canelo Crawford card, which I'll of course give a prediction for, and talk a bit more about for that video. But you got the likes of Mbili on there as well, and again, like I say, just fighters who haven't really been given too much of a push so far in their career tremendously, well. They might be joining Seller, and that might be their way to get a promotion and a proper push. And, maybe it means that the whole card, like I say, isn't as strong as what fans have been getting used to, but it is still a really good card, and of course it is still headlined by such a great event in Canelo Crawford. But, carry on talking about this event. This still is a good event in which I'm excited to see the outcome of this matchup. Olascuaga is a fan-friendly type of fighter. I mean, I'm definitely here whenever he wants to, fight. I'm there to watch him, and, I'm always excited to see whenever he fights, because he's a very exciting offensive fighter who has had multiple tests, and has kind of, he had the fallout against, well, the kind of slip up against Taraji, which was at light flyweight, and it was coming in on short notice, and in general it was just a rough fight for Olascuaga to take. But since then he still had multiple big tough fights, and he had the controversial kind of moment in the Bomba Gonzalez fight, but Bomba Gonzalez is always difficult to work with, so there's no real surprise that they're not trying to make that for a rematch. And then last time out, he was in a very tough fight as well against Hiroto Kaiguchi, who, of course, Kaiguchi has fought at the peak of the division, and obviously he's not the best in which he once was, but he was able to go into a second gear and still give Olascuaga a very tough fight in that fight. And to be fair, you do have to kind of say that maybe Olascuaga got a little bit fortunate with a late knockdown in which he scored in the 11th round, which, I mean, I don't know if that actually ended up swaying the judges or not, but it was a knockdown that, from certain angles you can maybe class as a slip. There was a bit of a punch landed, but again, it was not the cleanest of shots, and you could tell that Kaiguchi wasn't really hurt. So again, maybe he was a bit fortunate there. But now at least he's getting this opportunity finally for him to be able to bring his title back to America. And like I say, he's had to have so many big fights in Japan. You can see that he has got a good Japanese fan base now, but it's time to work on his American fan base and, like I say, bring some fights over to America and get some Japanese, top fighters into America as well. I mean, we've just recently had, of course, Sandoval become champion, and of course he's American, so that could be an amazing matchup to be made. Maybe next, maybe in a couple more fights, an all-American unification fight in the lower weight divisions. It's something in which hasn't happened in a while, and like I say, could be a great fight to be made. For Camacho, he's somebody who hasn't fought at the same level, and that's clear and obvious. He's had much more professional fights, but again, he's just kind of been ticking through his professional fights. He's coming off kind of like a journeyman opponent. His best fight was against Jason Mama, which is not really that high level of opposition. I mean, if you want to base it of where Jason Mama is at his point in his career now, obviously he lost that fight, but he just went on to fight Ricardo Malajica for the IBO title and then got stopped in that, and Camacho went to a split decision after being dropped twice by Jason Mama, and like I say, a controversial split decision where Camacho himself didn't even look like he was expecting to win that fight, and that is the best name on the resume of Camacho, and so I feel like that kind of does say it all. I mean, his last fight against the journeyman as well was a split decision as well, so he really hasn't been setting the world alight, I would say, in his more recent fights. But in general, the flyweight division isn't tremendously stacked, so to see him as a number one contender isn't really that surprising. But at the same time, I do feel like this is a clear kind of fight in which is a celebration fight for Olascuaga, and like I say, a chance for him to be able to bring his titles back home. To speak a bit more about both fighters individually, Olascuaga, of course, he works angles and gaps really well. He can twist his wrist into shots very nicely. I mean, the shot in which he knocked out his opponent in, I think it was Kano, to win the title was a lovely kind of screw uppercut shot, and it was, a beautiful knockout, really. And like I say, you can see when he was against Kaiguchi as well, and he was getting put on the back foot, you could see him working the angles and trying to find the gaps. And I mean, going back to that Kano knockout again, the way that he, just before he threw the screw knockout, he kind of opened the guard by slapping away, the right hand to then create that gap and then come through with the screw uppercut. If there isn't any gaps or any openings, he will create them, which is a really nice thing to be able to, see, and it provides, them knockouts. And when he carries an explosive level of power as well, again, it's a beautiful recipe. He's aggressive, he's a come forward fighter, but he can fight on the back foot. He's definitely willing to fight on the back foot. It's not necessarily the best of things, but he is willing to. I think he's often able to get better of exchanges. Sometimes, his accuracy can be off a bit, and I think he doesn't always deal with, smaller fighters tremendously well, or fighters who are just kind of pit-pattering shots, which is kind of what Taraji did, kind of what Kaiguchi did at times, which, seems to be able to work a bit against him. But, when he does land clean, you can normally tell in exchanges. He steps into his overhand nicely. He can fight on the back foot, like I say, if needs be. He's got a very good level of speed, in my opinion. He's got great punching variety as well. If you are going to allow him to just throw shots and land shots on you, he will throw a real good arsenal of shots. He can create power from them short shots as well, and he is typically able to keep his hands high. I think he can get caught with a jab far too much, but like I say, his hands are still pretty high. It's just the fact that the guard is a bit, wide and a little bit weak as well. And then to speak about more, negatives, I suppose, to an extent, he can be a little bit overly aggressive at times. You can see him getting in wars a bit too much, and he does get caught. And like I say, his head's on the line, and he can get caught by a jab. And there was a point in which against Kaiguchi, he was getting caught with a jab on quite a few occasions, and again, that's just not a good look. And it's a shot in which is pinging your head back, so again, it's just not good. When you're trying to impress the judges, he can square up in the pocket, and he will throw with his opponents. He can go back in straight lines as well for the most part, and won't really circle off. Like I say, trying to fight out of a corner or a bad spot instead of circling off. I don't feel like deals with head movement that well, or like I said, shorter fighters. I think his timing of his counters isn't the best, and like I say, he can be outthrown with just lighter shots, which again do seem to cause his accuracy to drop as well. To speak a bit more about Camacho, he changes tempo well. I think that's something in which he does have in his arsenal. He feints well, he's confident, and when he puts his doubles together, he's not really often throwing a tremendous amount of, 3, 4 punch combinations, but when he puts his doubles together and mixes in a couple of shots, it is nice. It's just I want to see him do that a bit more. He is patient and wants to pick shots at mid range, and when he can land them, it does seem to land, well, but it just can take a little bit too long, and he can get caught just waiting around. He brings back his shots nicely and returns them to a nice position, so he doesn't leave himself too vulnerable, which is just a refreshing thing to see. He can get in close quite quickly and can close that gap quickly. He can be physical if needed, perhaps a bit more physical than that of Olascuaga. He does come in launching with the right hand, which, if you can see it coming, you can move off. But I feel like against something like an Olascuaga, he probably won't be able to or won't want to circle off, so he might get caught with that. He maintains his work rate, and, well, to be fair, he kind of grows into it throughout the fight. He's not got bad head movement either, and when he kind of gets used to fighting on the inside, that's when he can, like I say, improve kind of throughout the fight. And in general, when he uses his head movement to get inside, that's when he can look the best. It's just when he actually gets it going, and he was able to get it going a bit in them later rounds against Jason Mama, and it was able to have, cause him to look good, look sharp, and have success getting in close. But it's just when he's trying to fight at a mid-range and box and to just not use that, not trying to get caught. I feel like if he takes one shot, he can maybe land a couple of his own. But again, I don't know how much that is a good thing against something like an Olascuaga. Negatives about him, I think he can often be throwing singular shots and a wasteful jab, which is, making it, which doesn't really even seem to make it to the target. Again, there was very much happening in the early rounds against Mama. He tries to box on the back foot, and I don't think that's his best either. And he can also smother his work often. When he is coming in with just singular shots, he's smothering his work, leaning in, ducking his head in quite a bit as well. He doesn't really seem to be able to handle kind of that explosiveness of his opponents that well either, and he does lose his shape coming in with quite messy footwork in general. He doesn't do too well at mid range, like I say, actually landing work. When he can get behind his jab, it is good, but it's just actually being able to commit and find that range and not be too hesitant when he's doing it. And I mean, his chin has been hurt, and it can be hurt when he actually starts becoming offensive. And that's, been shown now, and that's a vulnerability, and it's very difficult for a fighter to, really want to commit to shots if he has been dropped on a couple of occasions. Again, if Olascuaga drops him in this fight, that could be, easily just game over then for Camacho, because he might not want to commit to any more kind of shots. Who do I think will win? I think that Anthony Olascuaga will win via TKO in round 6. Pretty much what I just said there. I think he is going to be able to land the bigger shots, the better shots. Even if, Camacho comes in with one shot over the top, I could see Olascuaga catching Camacho out with the messy footwork, then being able to maybe capitalise. And even if it does go toe to toe, again, I think Olascuaga would win that kind of matchup. And, it's just if Carlos is waiting too long as well, trying to box on the outside, then Olascuaga, I think, will just be able to use his explosiveness to cause him problems. The only way in which I feel like Camacho could have a bit of success is if he really uses his head movement. But again, to be able to do that throughout the entirety of the fight, I think is just very difficult to do. So again, like I said, I think Olascuaga's power is going to be able to hurt Camacho, and I think he is going to be able to stop him, like I said. Who do I think he could go on to fight next? I mean, Felix Alvarado is one of the other top contenders in the division. He just came off another top contenders victory himself against another highly ranked guy, so that could maybe happen, but I don't feel like people are going to be, too excited for that. The Ibuki fight would be a great fight as well to happen. I mean, I would definitely be here for it, but if you guys are to hear me out, I think a Taraji matchup would be a great matchup for Olascuaga. Of course, Taraji stopped Olascuaga, like I say, on short notice in the light flyweight division, the division in which isn't Olascuaga's best division. Since Taraji moved up, he had his success, but then recently lost to Sandoval in a close fight. Well, kind of close fight. And instead of trying to make the rematch, let Sandoval go on to defend his title against maybe someone like an Alvarado, or maybe another up and coming contender who's kind of floating him out. Maybe a Galauya fight, because I don't want to see Galauya fight against Rodriguez again, because I don't think that Rodriguez deserves, of course, that opportunity again. I don't think they are going to do that anymore. So maybe Galauya fight versus Sandoval, that could be a good fight, and then let Olascuaga rematch Taraji, try and get his, own back, and then the winner of that to go on to fight, the winner of the possible fight versus Sandoval fight. I think that makes perfect sense. That can create a bit of excitement in the flyweight division, and like I say, that would be what I would want to see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.